I'm Eric Loy, and welcome to Eric Loy Interviews. On this podcast, we talk with folks from the VTuber community on their channels, their talents, their stories, where they come from, and their plans for the future. I'd like to welcome to the show Silver Olson. Hi.
Hello.
And please introduce yourself, Silver.
Hi, I'm Silver. I'm an artist for comics and commissions, and I like to do anime stuff.
And I've seen some of the work that you've done. Pretty amazing stuff. And of course, I'm coming from having absolutely negative art ability of my own, so I guess I appreciate it even more. that
Thank you.
That you're talented enough to do this. Is doing this type of artwork something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, I used to make comics as a little kid, and I always wanted to have like my own long-going comic, so that's something I'm really proud of being able to do now.
Yeah, well, doing the comic yourself is more than just the artwork. Obviously, you've got to be able to put the stories together and then in some cohesive order. If you're doing a long running thing, and then have storyboards. Is that how you work with storyboards?
Kind of. I do. I write it down in like a Word document first, what events I want to happen, and then I do. I think it's called like blue line paper, where it shows like 4 pages at a time, and I make the little panels with um, very vague details, and I just try to plan out the pages that way.
So do you have a long-term storylines already written down and in your head, how you want things to go?
Yeah, I have the end of it written out, and I have a few major events left in the comic to get to, but I have space for me to put in new ideas and like things that might come up organically through chatting with readers.
There's always got to be a little wiggle room.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes what sounded really good at one point suddenly doesn't make any sense to you, and you have to adjust to that. I imagine anybody who's writing any sort of long fiction, whether it's a comic variety or a book or anything along those lines, has to keep themselves agile that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you put your first cartoon animation on paper or computer?
I recently found one from 2003.
Oh, wow.
So that was interesting.
Yeah.
That was in middle school.
Oh, wow. So it has been quite a while that you've been working on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's it feel like to have this, have obviously had this been a major part of your life, and now have a product out there that people can actually enjoy?
It's really surreal to be selling at like conventions and have people come up and say, "Oh, I like all your fan art, but what is this original comic story?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you want to know about my characters?"
Yeah.
It feels great.
So does that spur you on to keep going, or does it want you to come up with different ideas and maybe a different type of comic down the line?
Yeah, there was a year or so that I stopped doing the comic, and I actually had a friend come up to me and he asked me, "When do I get to read the next issue?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, people want my comic.
Yeah.
I guess I should get back to work."
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
got to be a great feeling.
it was nice.
Yeah, know that your passion and what you're wanting to do is appreciated. It's kind of validating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were drawing everything, I imagine since you were drawing from such a young age, that you are probably almost completely self-taught. Am I right?
Yeah, I had a class when I was like 14 or 15 from some guy who did comics himself. He was just like in the newspaper advertising comics classes. And then 6 or 7 years ago, I took a how to color class from some of the artists that do Marvel work.
Okay.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. and at the
but
end,
no like college courses or anything.
yeah. Well, I imagine those are that for some folks that's the way to go, especially if you already have a style that you're doing, and you have a way to do it. It doesn't. I've heard people go to art classes, art schools, and they don't feel that their particular talent was optimized. They kind of get shoved into a corner or put through a keyhole, and it comes out whatever the the instructor wants rather than what you want. With
Oh
those,
yeah, I've
yeah,
heard that too.
yeah, and it sounds to me like you've got your style ready to go already. You after 20 years, you've got it honed down.
Yeah, I think I'd hope so.
Yeah.
It does change now and then. I look back at the comic when it started in 2015, and it does look different, a lot different than what it looks like now.
Well, you're talking 9 years. A lot of things can change in nine
Yeah,
years. I mean, you could grow an extra hand. You could. I don't know whether that would help or hurt, depending on how it goes. But there's just a lot of different things that can happen. Plus, your outlook on it might be different. Has that changed over 9 years?
I've gotten more confident
Mm-hmm.
in how I want it to end, and gotten more confident in just being able to release pages and not have anybody say anything about them, because now I know that people are reading it. They just don't always leave comments.
Mm. And it's yeah, well, that's true. I mean, a lot of folks you don't really know how they're enjoying it, but the fact that they're coming back and reading more of it means they are enjoying it.
Yes.
Yeah, whether and some of us don't know how to how to praise or critique something like that effectively, and we're just gonna sit and silently hope that you come up with the next page soon. Um, next episode. Do you call them episodes, pages,
I
post?
call them pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, every week there's a new page.
Mm. So in how far ahead of time do you know what's going to be going on that page?
I'm actually usually I do a chapter at a time where I will do 30 pages of planning. But for some reason, I only did like half of chapter 7, which is what I'm on right now.
Hmm.
And I've reached the end of my planning. So next week is the last planned out page, and I need to start doing some more planning.
This is where the aliens show up and take over everything. The end. And then the world blew up. The end. Um, well, that was a quick end. Um, After doing this for all this long, and you obviously have an end game in sight, and is it a little bit melancholy knowing you may be in the final few episodes of what you've been planning to do for all this long?
Yeah, it is pretty weird. I have had these characters, some of them for almost 20 years, and they've never made it into a story. So it's nice to have them finally in their story and doing their things. And now I'm getting to like the last two-thirds of uh the last two-thirds of the story,
Mm.
and I'm seeing the end in sight, and it's really odd. And my friends are like, "What are you gonna do next?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I don't know."
It's been such a big part that suddenly seeing an actual finish line, you didn't really expect to see that in the distance, and now it's
Yeah, it's true.
and how are you going to cross that finish line too? I mean, I'm sure you've had a few different scenarios play through your mind how you want to finish things off. Has that changed over the years?
Yes, the ending has changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I still have the major like plot points,
Mm-hmm.
but like the characters involved and how it happens has changed over the years.
That's a stuff that's for an artist. I imagine that really sticks on you a little bit, especially when you're doing something like this, because when you put the page up, you better be pretty much satisfied with what you put up, because making changes afterward won't make any sense.
Yep, that's true.
So when you put it up there, even though you want to tweak it here and there later, a couple weeks later, you got to stay away from it.
Yeah, and a lot of artists look at their first chapter or their first couple chapters and they wonder, oh, I could do this so much better now. And they feel like redrawing it. But I've tried very hard to stay away from that feeling
Mm.
because it's going to be way too much work and I've got new pages to draw, so I don't have time to be drawing the old pages over again.
This is just tie your hands behind your back when you're reading the older stuff.
Yeah.
No, bad artist. Stay away. The so what type of work inspired you to do this, or just something that happened organically when you were younger?
Um, I was always uh what was it, encouraged to write my own stories, and we did a lot of like make believe as a young kid and my brother. We would make our own stories and towns and things with Legos,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom would always be like, "You should write this down," and so we did our own writing as kids.
Mm-hmm. And
So
and
I'm just so used to it.
yeah, and was there any type of artistry or comic that you were kind of basing your love of it on?
This comic in particular is very fantasy based,
Mm-hmm.
so like Lord of the Rings kind of D&D mix.
Mm-hmm. So those were kind of inspirations for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the ability, what drew you to the comics format?
Hmm. I think because I wanted to be an animator, but I didn't have the money for the programs,
Mm,
I was able to make comics, and it's kind of like animating because you can draw action and tell a story with it,
mm,
but you don't have to have the fancy programs.
yeah. And it does take a while. I talked to somebody not that long ago about they did animation. They managed to get 1 second done and they were done with it.
Yeah.
It's all of the work that it needed to get 1 second of animation taken care of. They're like, I can just do it this way. It's fine. Have you been able to play with the animation stuff and give it a try yourself?
I did have oh gosh, it was Flash, Adobe Flash like 20 years ago or something.
Yeah.
I had a 30-day trial and I spent all 30 of those days trying to make something. And
Mm,
I made like this 10-second stick figure weird. It even included some of the characters that I have in my story now
mm,
that I think about it.
mm.
But I can't even watch it anymore because it's a Flash file.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how to load it.
So much stuff is now just sitting there, not being able to be accessed because of
Yeah.
Flash going down. Even though I have a couple computers that still say updates are available, I don't. I'm like, no, 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 they're not. stop, stop it, and let's get to the program, okay? Um, the so what do you use now for your animation? What programs?
I use Clip Studio Paint, and that's pretty much it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, is
and
it
it's not. I don't do any animation anymore. I just do the comics.
right? Is it pretty intuitive to use? Were you able to get all this nuances pretty easily?
I spent about a month when I was first learning it, trying to memorize all the shortcuts
Mm.
because that really helps you speed up.
Oh yeah.
But just looking at the pictures of what's on like each brush is pretty intuitive, but there's so much in Clip Studio that you can do that's not a button.
Mm.
Like it's hidden in the menus or something. So I've watched a lot of how-tos. Like every month or two, I'll spend a little time on YouTube just looking at how other people are coloring or how other people are doing their line art.
Mm. Yeah, and that's another great thing about the medium is that you kind of get to see and I wouldn't say steal, but I'll say crib off
Yeah,
people eventually. Well, at least you can modify what you're doing a little bit based on what other people. You might find a great shortcut or a great way to do a certain thing and use that in what you're doing as well. Now, when
Yep.
you're online, what do you like to do?
When I'm streaming, I love to just make my comic pages
Mm-hmm.
and also any commissions that I have.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes play games, but I've really moved away from that. I like just doing art.
So, what type of commissions do you get?
I just did a recent commission of a cartoon spider wearing 8 flip-flops, and that was really fun. But then I get like more serious commissions, like this is my tabletop character
Mm,
and I don't have any references, but this is like what they look like and what they act like, and I can draw their characters for their tabletop games.
mm. Lots of D&D type stuff, I imagine.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Again, it always comes down to there's so much of the gaming world and the modern comics world that comes down to D&D. Um, One way or another, something has been influenced by it. Uh,
Yeah.
so many games were influenced by it. It's really something, and I'm glad to have been able to play a little bit of it when it was just one book,
Oh,
and it was a lot simpler then. Yes,
yeah.
yes, there is a goblin. You killed it. Take its 2 gold and move on. Rather than then you tick off the dungeon master and he rolls a 20 and a rock hits you or something. That's something easy like that. But I'm glad to see that's going on and it's still influencing a lot of things. With going online and doing your say you're doing your comic, um, do you get backseat drivers?
Not really.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes we make jokes, like there was a scene where the characters were having like lunch with the new characters
Mm-hmm.
and they were talking about something very important to the comic story,
Mm-hmm.
and the chat was just like, are they talking about the secret recipes for ravioli? And I'm like, yes, yes, they are.
That's
So then we talked about all of our like favorite raviolis.
it's now canon.
Yeah.
They're talking
So
about.
now every time I see those pages, I think of ravioli.
Oh, I know what I want to talk to you about that. With you've got 9 years invested in this now. Do you have
Yeah.
like a massive um, catalog or program or file of notebooks where you've got certain events written down so you don't mess up the quote unquote canon for the characters?
It's not too massive. There's, I think, 2 or 3 notebooks I have
Uh huh.
physically, and then I have one folder of random Word documents that
Mm,
I put notes in over the years.
yeah.
But a lot of the story I wrote in the beginning, and it's just small changes
Mm-hmm.
throughout the years, but it's mostly the same.
Hmm. So tell us a little bit. If can you summarize what you've got going with the story? What was your original idea for it?
I wanted um I wanted a big battle with magic,
Mm-hmm.
and so I created this world where the elements of the world are controlled by goddesses,
Mm-hmm.
and they start to lose control over these elements. And then we've got the good guys and the bad guys both figuring out that they can be in charge of the god of the elements now if they can only get the power of the goddesses.
Mm-hmm.
So it's stealing from each other the powers and using them against each other, and what havoc it wreaks on the world as the teams move around through it.
Violence and intrigue. So with that, what has been the toughest action for you to put in your comic? Is it actual fight scenes? Is it dialogue scenes? Um, what do you do that makes yourself go, oh, I shouldn't have done that?
It's definitely the action scenes. I
Yeah,
feel like I should have more of them, and then when I get to them, I'm like, what do I do? How do I make this look right?
yeah.
Is it actiony enough? But it's not quite. like Western comics, like Batman or something,
Right.
but it's not quite anime, so
Mm,
it's somewhere in between.
mm. It, it's. I imagine it's tough to do the same thing from one panel to the next when you're because you have to remember that if it's a one-on-one type of battle, you have to remember where the person was injured, and not set up where suddenly the right shoulder that was injured is now perfectly fine, and the left shoulder now is injured. There's a lot to keep
Yeah.
track of, and that sort of thing.
I'm really thankful one of my best friends is very interested in the comic, and she likes to read my notes and look at the storyboards before they become pages, and
Mm-hmm.
she'll pick out things like loopholes and plot holes
Mm,
and be like, I don't think this is really what he should say here, and I'm like, oh, you're right.
mm. So she works as kind of an editor for you.
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah, it's good to have that, and it's good that they're that interested in it, and not just interested in it, but kind of as committed in a way, and
yeah.
not trying to steer you off into something else. Um, that's unfortunately that's probably what I would do. I say, no, no, no. You should have him do this. You should have him drive a car. This, um, uh, and try to put whatever my unfocused vision is upon yours. Um, with all of that, and with the development you've seen in some characters, have you surprised yourself with how the story has gone on occasion?
I think so because the goddesses are more involved than I originally thought they would be.
Mm,
I thought they would just kind of be like the powers that be, and we would steal their powers.
mm,
But now they're actually like talking to the characters, and they're invested in what's going to happen.
mm-hmm.
So I get to draw them more often than I expected.
and 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 originally they were kind of be like uh, more more thought of than seen or heard.
Yes.
Uh, now you've got to draw them every time.
Now they're having scenes where they're talking to each other instead of the main characters, and I'm like, wow, they've got their own drama.
Yeah, goddesses do that. They just kind of just butt in and take over. It's you just got to watch them every step of the way. But with that, has your drawing design of some characters changed over the years?
A little bit, not too much. I kept a kind of like a reference sheet
Mm-hmm,
at the very beginning of what should their hair and face look like
mm-hmm,
and what is their outfit, and that has pretty much stayed consistent. I wanted to make the characters different from each other by way of their like nose and eye shapes.
right?
So do a lot of um, I do a lot of particular drawings when I'm doing a certain character. It has to have that same shape because that's the way the character looks.
Mm. Yeah, and you keep that consistent. And everything. It's a discipline too, isn't it, to keep things as consistent as possible?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that discipline. I'd be messing with things all the way. Have you gotten to the point where you look back at something now, or you get the characters get into a situation, and you look back at another situation years ago and say, I wish I'd have handled that differently.
Yeah, there are some chapters where I'm like, this isn't as exciting as I hoped it would be,
Yeah,
or this is taking a lot longer to talk about their problems in this couple pages.
yeah.
But that just leads me to say, like, I know not to use too much dialogue in the next page,
Mm.
or maybe I can add some more action to the next chapter.
Yeah, you get to something and say, well, this would have been a lot easier had I done this back then, and
Yeah.
instead of introducing it now. How often do you get a eureka moment when you're doing a storyboard, you're doing the animation, and you, oh, I could really wrap it up if I did this, and then you have to talk yourself out of it.
I don't think that happens.
Well, Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't
because I know the ending and I know it's not yet. So
yeah
I'm just inching my way toward it.
you don't get those crazy out of left field type of things and then almost convince yourself to do it and then have to convince yourself not to do it.
There's ideas like I could have a separate story about the background of this character's trauma or
Mm,
something like that.
yeah.
But I think that's not the basis of what's happening in this story.
Mm.
So I just kind of hint at it and think maybe I'll make a mini comic later. Maybe I'll just write about it.
Just file that away for future reference and
Yeah.
come back to it
Yep.
later. That's a great way to do it. So you've got to. I won't say that the finish line is in sight, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
Um, any any regret now that you're that close? It's like you would maybe you said maybe I shouldn't have put a deadline for a finish on this.
No, I don't think so. I really actually look forward to the finish, but I don't know what I'm going to do next. But
Uh,
that's just kind of like a future me thing.
yeah, yeah. So you when you started this, you definitely had in mind a finish.
Yes.
Hmm. Did you think it was going to take 10 years?
No, but I do have a job that's not art related and streaming related, so I do have to work like 8 to 4
Yeah,
every Monday through Friday, and then I get to come home and do art.
yeah. Stupid jobs.
So I know it takes a lot of time away from what I could be creating.
Yeah. So, when you're at the job, do you get ideas there every once in a while?
Not very often. It's a very intense like thinking job.
Mm.
I work in a school, so I don't get a
Ah.
lot of downtime.
Oh, well, I I'd be asking the students.
Yeah.
So, just in case there was a character that did this, what would... of course, I was in media, and the M in media
I do have
means mooch. Most,
I do have a couple drawings of my characters near my desk to
yeah,
like cheer me up when it's like a hard day.
yeah,
And the students will see that and ask, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just my comic book characters."
yeah.
And I have to not talk about the comic book with them because it's elementary students and the
Mm,
comic book is kind of like 13 plus.
yeah,
So I'm like, I can't really share this with you,
yeah,
but I make a comic. Someday maybe you'll read it, but
yeah,
not now.
yeah. Yep, you tell the kids not to go on the internet, and that's certainly that what they'll do. They'll stay away from that internet. Yep, none of them have found it yet. And whatever helps you sleep at night. No, I imagine it's a little tough sometimes because you want to tell them what's going on. You want to tell people, hey, look at this. Um,
Yeah.
has that ever been a problem for you? I mean, obviously you started very young in artwork, but not just showing off your creativity and what the work that you've done, but now you've got this comic, which I imagine is a little bit more personal to you than say just a commission situation. How how do you get over the hump of showing people what you've done?
Uh, I just I say, oh, I like to do art, and then I let them ask about it,
Ah,
but I don't really promote myself as much as I could.
ah, yeah, I can see that. I can see it. So you're passive aggressive.
I often have like coworkers telling each other, "Oh, Silver does art. You should ask him about his comic book." And I'm like, "Oh, now I can tell you about it."
That's right. Kind of kind of drop a little hints here and there. Maybe take have a little index card with a drawing on it and leave it in certain places. No, to me that would be a little tough. I mean, it tough to do because as I wouldn't be confident enough to do that. But I imagine over time that you've gotten the confidence enough to show people what you do.
Yeah, and selling at conventions has really helped
Mm,
because you have to sit there and peddle your art, and it's like people walk by and you have to be like, "Hey, look what I made. Do you want one? And also, I can draw you something just for you."
yeah,
And you have to talk about what you can do and try to keep them interested.
yeah,
And it's really fun to see them get interested in it, or if they come back the next year and say, "Oh, I have that picture of My Hero Academia on my wall in my house."
yeah,
And I'm like, "Oh my God, you have my art in your house."
yeah. So, how does that hit you?
It's really weird, but like I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know
It's
that the
not something I thought of, even though I've got other people's art all over my house.
yeah,
When I think of it being my art, it's different.
yeah. That's really cool, though. I mean, there's people out there that you don't know from Adam, and
Yeah,
and they have your art up on the wall.
yep,
That's something that would keep the fire burning a little bit, I imagine.
yeah, it definitely helps motivate me.
Yeah. Do you ever get times when you're just completely not motivated at all?
Yeah, and then there'll be 2 or 3 days where I don't do any art, and I'm like, oh no, I need to do something. So then I'll sketch something. But
Yeah.
thankfully, I've had commissions
Hmm.
pretty regularly the past few months,
Yeah.
so I kind of have to do the art, and that keeps me working.
So that keeps your hand in the game.
Yeah,
Yeah. Also, a little bit of money for food is good too.
yes,
You do have to feed the artist. The term "starving artist" is an actual thing on occasion. But it really sounds like you've hit yourself a pretty good groove here. Um,
yeah.
and is there anything that you would like to work on and make a little easier on yourself as we come into a new year here in a couple months?
Um, I made some goals already to make like a new print every other month
Yeah.
and to make character references for my characters
Hmm.
and to finish chapter 7 so then I'll go on to chapter 8. And
Hmm.
every time I finish 30 pages, I print it out physically so
Yeah.
that I can sell it at conventions, and I also have it for sale locally at one of the comic book shops.
Mm. Can
So
can
that's really cool.
can someone get that online?
Yeah, you can get it at my Etsy,
Hmm.
and you can read it for free on the official website if you don't want it in like a book form.
But it's much better if you pay for it.
It's really cool to actually hold it and read it,
I'm trying to
and
help you out.
the
I'm trying to
colors came out great.
I'm trying to help you out here with the commerce part of it.
Yeah,
If you really want to show support, you can always buy it,
yes.
give money. But it sounds like you don't need my help for any of that. You've kind of you've grown it on your own, and you've made it organically yours, and people are enjoying it. And I mean, I wish you the best continuing. I don't see how it's going to do anything but get better at this point.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and never mind the fact that I envy everything that you're doing. I drew a stick figure once and got hit by lightning. That's how bad I do art. it's they don't want anything to do with me writing stuff like that. Sometimes I write in cursive and it's still bad. But the fact that you're able to do this and show folks what you've got going and distribute it really is a testament to what this medium can do, and it's a testament to what you can do too. I'm very pleased to be able to meet you and discuss your talents with everybody. And when you get to start to wrap things up in the next chapter, you let me know so we can get you on and preview it again. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I really do appreciate it. Silver's links are going to be in the description for this interview, and check out what Silver's got going on. You will enjoy it, and buy it. I mean, you will enjoy it, and and you'll be supporting someone who obviously you could tell from us talking here for the last several minutes um, is a big part of their lives and something that they really enjoy. Thanks so much for coming on, Silver.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Eric Loy Interviews. Join us again next time when we talk to another member of the always interesting VTuber community.